Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're going to be doing something a little bit different to what I normally do on my channel, and that is reviewing the flipper. Stay tuned. So I picked this up the other day. Basically, as you can see, I've got quite a large tank. It's 10 foot long, 2 foot tall, and it's double sided. This side I do clean almost every day using this Magnet float, and it does the job. I've used this for many years now, probably 4 or 5 years. But what I find is that, especially during the summer, certain places such as around here get a heavy build-up of algae. So I picked this up the other day, a flipper. Basically, I think it's called a flipper from reading online is because you have a soft side and then the razor blade side. So the soft side, well, kind of the normal side is kind of like this kind of setup. So on the back of this we have an abrasive pad, and that just rubs up against the glass, and that actually does do a pretty decent job of cleaning, to be fair. As you can see, it's taken all off here, and I've used this for years, and it does work. It's never really had that much of a problem with it, other than, as you can see, I've went over and there's still some left behind, so you have to kind of go up and down and then go back and forwards, and it takes some time, but eventually it will clear it up. However, this tank is double-sided. It's 10 foot by 2 foot tall, and on the other side it's 2 foot tall by about 8 foot long. So I'll go in the top, and using a razor blade I can usually get all this off and it's not usually a problem. However, on the other side it's more tricky. So this is the other side. This is the side from my living room. So as you can see, there's plenty of algae. It's pretty well caked on there. Now the reason for this is, as you can see, my mag float for this side has fallen off, and the abrasive side is there, and I can't get to it. I picked up the flipper and I figured I'll leave this for an extra few days and give it a good try, basically, and hopefully this will be a pretty good review of how good it is. Now this is thick. This will take, from past experience, I could probably spend an hour on this. What I'll tend to do is spend a good 10-15 minutes going over the whole entire area, and then I'll probably stop for a second, come back, and then go up and down, and I'll probably do that for another 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then come back and then get the rest off. But however, that being said, this dark green algae spots here and the stuff down here especially, and it's actually starting to turn purple in some places, that will be really tricky to get rid of. So as you can see, you've got this section here and this section here, that will not come off pretty much with this. When the other side gets as bad as it is, I resort to this, and I've used this for many years. I got this second hand. I got a free of a tank, and it's a bit like the flipper in that it's got an abrasive side, but it's also got a blade, and I've been sharpening this blade over the years, as you can probably make out. However, it is actually broke on me on one side. It's actually snapped here, and because that's snapped, you're not getting the full pressure. And last time I used this, probably about 2 weeks ago now, it basically hardly took anything off. It was probably just as good or maybe worse than the mag float. So that's why I decided to pick up the flipper. So let's get this unpackaged and in the tank and see how well it does. So it looks like it comes with that spare blade. Oh, that's plastic. Right, so that must be for acrylic, and this must be for the glass tank. How does this come off? Ah, there we go. So you twist. Yeah, twist, rotate the handle to release. Right. So basically, simple as that. So I won't put them together, but in the tank, this will go up against the glass, which is pretty much what I've already got now. And then if I flip it by rotating the handle so it releases it, and then put it back on, this will run up against the glass, and this would scratch the glass, the algae off. So let's put this in the tank and give it a go. I'm assuming it'll float. Is it going to float? Now, I thought it went straight to the surface. So that's a bit disappointing. Okay, so it doesn't float. That's quite surprising. I mean, this is called a mag float. Obviously these float. I just assumed that was standard. I just thought they took the name. I didn't realise this wouldn't float. So you've got to be careful with this, because if you let this go down to the bottom, you do not want to get all the gravel stuck in the pad. So, as we can see, we'll take this section here. That's one pass. It's almost all gone. 2 passes. And it's pretty much gone, other than there's a few spots of algae. Let's try the same with a flipper. It's interesting, it's a bit small. I suppose I could use it this way. Would that be a problem? So that's one pass. Two passes, and very much like the mag float, we have some bits of algae that is left over, so that's pretty disappointing. How is a tackle? There's quite a large spot here. See that pad is really soft. I read the instructions. Basically, you move this away from the glass, rotate it around, put it to the side, and then it flips it. It's actually pretty good. Then the problem is, start at the top. If you start at the middle, you'd risk it going to the gravel, which you don't want. So, you say, remove from glass, turn around, put to the side, and then flip. And there you go. So, how well does this do on this stubborn algae? You see that? So about 10 passes and it was gone. And we are halfway through. And that is currently what it looks like. So this normally would take, for this much glass, for half a tank, I would say 5 minutes maybe with this. And we'll do the same quality. We'll get to the same level as this one gets to. But this did it, I would say, about a minute or so. Now the blade isn't as good as I expected. Now with a razor blade, one pass with a razor blade, crystal, pretty much you finished. You can pretty much razor blade this. If I'm doing a service on this, so all these trays here are all removed, this trim here is removed, and I'm on a stool, I can razor blade the entire front of this tank in a matter of minutes and it will look perfect. It will look brand spanking new. However, on a 2 to 3 day basis using this, generally I could spend a good 5-10 minutes doing the front glass, but it's never as bad as this. This does seem a lot quicker. I do like the way that it kind of, you got the best of both worlds. You have the razor blade and you have the soft pad. But yeah, so far guys, I'm very happy with the results. It's pretty much perfect. I really can't see many, if any, spots of algae. There's one here which I've missed. Sometimes getting down low and looking up, you can actually see better where you missed. But yeah, that's pretty much the only place I've missed is there. So I think next we'll move on to the other side. So this is pretty bad. I don't know if this camera's picking up as it should do, but it's pretty grim. And as you see, one pass and back on itself. Pretty clear. One pass, move down, one pass. And if we do one more pass, that's 2 passes. And we have algae, nothing, then algae. So basically 2 passes and you're good to go. So let's get the rest of this taken down and I'll get back to you. Okay, so it's been about 3 days since I last cleaned this glass, but now it's had 3 days worth of growth. And as you can see, there's some tiny marks just along the top. If you can, probably can't make them out on camera, but it's just starting to, the glass is just basically starting to get pitted with algae. It's very fine, but it's there. Up close you can see it just moving around. And a good indication that there's algae on the glass is all these little critters here are eating the algae, so it's definitely time to clean the glass. And like I said, this has been 3 days, so this should give a good example of what it's going to be like living with the flipper. Now before, the glass was really bad, so it wasn't really a true example of how this would work. So I'm going to go ahead now, clean the glass, and let's see how long it'll take me. Right, so now I've got the soft side on. So what I'll do is I'll clean down the glass to about here, flip it back around to the razor blade side, because you do not want to use the pad side and the gravel, and then clean the gravel, and I'll get back to you. Well, there you go, that probably took no more than 60 seconds. Fantastic. It just cuts straight through the algae. I'm very impressed. So basically, if I do this every 2 to 3 days, 60 seconds, maybe 2 to 3 minutes a week, and you get your glass looking like this. So one side I haven't done is the other side. Now the other side has not been touched in weeks. I have no idea how long it's been, long time. So let's go over there. Can you see it? Let's go over there and give that a clean. So one thing I will mention is that this is not a floating magnet. So when you take this off, it drops, which is a bit irritating, because when you're on the other side of the tank and you have to get the magnet across, before I would just let it float across, use the magnet and pull it to it. But with this, I kind of had to chuck it down so it got stuck here, and then use the magnet on this side. So it was a bit awkward, but it's on. It is on the foam padded side, not the razor blade. Let's just see how well it gets this off. So after a few passes, 2 or 3 goes over it, as you can see, the algae is still there, but it's pretty decent. It's better than expected. This was before, and this is after. Before, after. So that is 1/3 of the tank done. We've got 2 more thirds to go. So as you can see, looking pretty good. It's pretty much perfect. There's a few bits down here which are a bit tricky, they're quite stubborn, but they will come off eventually, but need to work more on them. But other than them few little dots at the bottom, glass is perfect. This did take about 10 minutes, so realistically you're probably talking a good half an hour, maybe 45 minutes say, to do all this properly. But this is worst case scenario. This is weeks of algae. I've never let the tank get this bad before. This is just for an experiment. So let's see how easily this comes off. Now what I find is this stuff here is quite easy to remove. The darker stuff is more stubborn. So we'll call that one pass. And 2 pass, and there you go. That is pretty much clear glass. The algae is still down below. It did miss a few bits out, but you just got to keep going over them until they go away. Now what I have found is before I was kind of just scraping away. It does work, but I find when you go slower, if you notice, it has this kind of jagged action going on, and that really does help. It just shreds the algae off. With stuff like this, it's brilliant. Okay, so it's the next night, and I left it basically last night after I finished cleaning the glass, because I was going so far down into the sand, it was stirring it all up and it was a complete mess. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but it wasn't clear. So it's the next night, and as you guys can see, this looks fantastic. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I've probably missed a few spots. I've not inspected it since last night. From first impressions, I can't really see any. Oh, like for example, you can see that on camera, there's one there, but for the most part, I think it looks fantastic. It's been about a week now since I've had this, and every 2 or 3 days I come in, literally 30 seconds on the soft side, back and forwards, flip it over for the razor blade just for the bottom couple of inches, because you do not want to get that into the gravel into the pad, and cleaning the bottom bit, and we're done. I mean, I could probably clean this glass 5 minutes a week tops. That's both sides, 2 or 3 times a week, and it should be good to go. It should basically keep looking like this. What I will be doing is the flipper will stay in here. It'll get tucked up in the corner, out the way, and I will use that solely for this side of the tank. I will keep using my other one for the front of the tank, and if I ever need to actually get in there and really give it a good clean, I will just use a razor blade, because if you have access, a razor blade is a lot quicker, and if you're careful and know what you're doing, it has great results. Pretty much the same as this. This took a long time. This did not take 5 minutes. The thick of it came off quite quickly, minutes, but as I mentioned before, the way the corals go, the sun comes through from this side, and for some reason I would have thought the top half what gets the sun from the back door. I honestly believe that would have been the worst to get off, but it turns out the silhouette of all the corals, so basically everything downwards, was incredibly thick. I would say it took 5 minutes to thick off. you're gonna think I'm crazy, but it took us the best part of an hour to get the rest off. Now with a razor blade, I could have done that in minutes, but as I mentioned, and I've tried, I can't get a razor blade from the top of that tank all the way down to here. So I know you can get the extendable arms with a razor blade where it clips into it. That's all well and good. And say if you have access to the top of the tank and you're working your way down there, fair enough, that will work. But reaching from that corner to down here and you can't see what you're doing, you just have a razor blade on a pole and you're just going to town, pushing down, pushing down, pushing down. And for all you guys know, you could be scratching the hell out of all this glass. You could be damaging coral. I have a massive urchin which is currently up there at the minute. That could be down here. You just can't see what you're doing. This is the dining room side, and as you can see, just like the other side, brilliant. Really, really nice. No damage. Nice and clean, nice and clear. So yeah, really happy. And one thing I will say is be very careful when cleaning your glass with the scraper side. Now they say it's designed with these two like nylon kind of stubs, I think you can call them. That rests on the glass. This is the only other part that actually touches the glass. So you got the nylon studs and this blade. In theory that sounds great, but what I did find is if this is in the tank and you're going along the bottom, gravel kind of comes up and sits on this little step here, and as you're moving, makes its way down in between the glass and this. And only because I was going slow, I noticed this. If you're going quite quick, you may not pick it up and you could cause some damage. So I kind of think that's a bad design flaw. I guess it's there for a reason. I'm not too sure why. Maybe to hold it, possibly. But it's a trap basically, and it just traps all the gravel. It's not great. That is a bit frustrating. For a really stubborn algae, what I found is if you imagine this is in the tank and the glass is here, I was putting my hands in between. Got resistance, it's the wrong way around. I was putting my hand in between the magnet and angling the magnet forward, which put more pressure on the front and less on the back. Rather than doing this in the glass, it's more like this. So you're getting a bit more of an angle, and it just helps to get it off. Also, as I mentioned, rather than going quick, if you just go slow and keep stopping, it kind of makes like a judder motion, which kind of takes off chunks rather than a strip. And if the strip isn't coming off, that method does help. And once you did it a couple of passes this way, if you rotate the other way and come from the other direction, it gets it off again, and then move it this way and then move it that way. After a couple of passes, they will eventually disappear. I don't think there's much more I can say about this. Excuse that noise, by the way, sorry about that. That is because I've been messing about with the filtration. I've been changing the pump settings on the Vortec power heads. I need to change the overflow settings, because what's basically happened is because I've increased the speed, the water level is dropped slightly in the back, so it's taking a bit of air down. So I just need to adjust the valve down below, and that will sort that out. Let's give this a little adjustment. And then in about 30 seconds or so, that hopefully should stop that gurgling noise. So, I guess we can come to the final verdict. Do I recommend this? Yes, I do. I quite like it. I've always fancied one. I've always thought it is a lot of money for what it is, but if you guys are paying this much money for these kind of fish, I mean right here, this fish and this fish, well over £200. If you're investing that much money in fish, a £40 magnet, algae scrubber, scraper, I don't think it's that much to ask, really. The other ones, they are a lot cheaper and they do work. And if you maintain it and keep on top of it, you probably won't need to invest in one of these. The scraper, the actual scraper side of it, a lot of people probably won't even need to use this. But for me, because sometimes I get a bit busy, I've got lots of projects at the minute. If you guys watch this channel, you will know I'm doing quite a lot at the minute. And I've also got a family and I work full time. So for me, I can sometimes quite easily go a week and just totally neglect this. It doesn't do any damage to the fish, it's just a visual thing. And then I come back out with the algae scraper, my original ones, and they just don't really cut it. You need a razor blade or something to really get it off to this level. You can't just scrape it off because it kind of embeds in the glass and it's a bit frustrating, it's irritating, and you usually have spots all over the glass. And you can take the thick off, but generally there's always stuff left over. So would I recommend buying one of these? If you have a 3 or 4 foot tank and you have access from the top to the glass, probably not. You can get one if you wish, but you can get much cheaper. If, like me, you have difficulty getting to the back of the tank, or you just have no access whatsoever and this is the only means of cleaning the tank, something like this, then yes, definitely. It's a great product. For about 35 to 40 pounds, you're not going to get much better than this. There's the max version, which I think is about 70 or 80. I wouldn't mind trying that at some point. I think that might be a good comparison. The mid-range one for your pretty much your standard tank. The one down from this is more your Nano or your smaller tanks. This is for your probably 3 or 4 foot size tanks. This glass on this is about ½ inch, so this is pretty much bang on the money for what you're going to get. You should really probably go to the max because the max would be a much stronger magnet, but for what I need, this is perfectly fine and I'm very happy with it. And maybe sometime in the future I will review the max version, but for the time being I think we're going to call this one here, guys. So like always, please like, subscribe and comment down below, and I'll catch you in the next one.